Hi, welcome to Archaeology. Today I'm going to try something a little different from my normal scripted videos. I'm tentatively calling this the Archaeology Roundup, but I'm happy to take suggestions on name ideas. For months now I've posted news articles relating to archaeology on my Minds page, and here I'm going to pick certain articles that I find interesting, present them, and give my opinions about them. I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. Alright, looking at this article from the International Business Times entitled, Who is Ankhesenamun? Archaeologists start excavation into tomb of Tutankhamun's wife. Wife and half-sister, because that's just how the pharaohs rolled. And they have a nice picture of the famous burial mask of Tutankhamun. Looks like conservators have fixed the beard after one of them pulled it off, then crudely glued it back on with superglue. Renowned archaeologist Zahi Hawass believes the burial chamber of Tutankhamun's wife, Ankhesenamun, has been discovered in the Valley of the Kings. The tomb of the pharaoh Tutankhamun, who ruled ancient Egypt between 1332 and 1323 BC, was discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter. It was a huge deal because the tomb hadn't been looted like so many other royal tombs, so they found an amazing assemblage of grave goods there, along with the remains of the young pharaoh. Hawass is investigating the Valley of the Monkeys, a side valley to the Valley of the Kings. Geez, that's a downgrade. Sorry, not burying you in the Valley of the Kings, but there is a slot free in the Valley of Monkeys. Hawass has done ground-penetrating radar scans of the area around the tomb of Tutankhamun's successor, which indicate the presence of another tomb entrance 5 meters below the surface. Ancient Egyptian history at this point is like a season of Game of Thrones. It's called the Amarna period and has a fascinating cast of characters. First and foremost of all was the heretic pharaoh Amenhotep IV, who destroyed the traditional Egyptian religion in order to break the power of the priesthood of Amun, creating instead a monotheist religion centered on the sun, Aten, with himself as its prophet, of course. He changed his name to Akhenaten and moved the capital to an entirely new city named Amarna. One of his wives was the famous Nefertiti, and Tutankhaten and Ankhesenamun, as they're originally named, were Akhenaten's children. There were other important figures such as the Grand Vizier Ai and the General of the Army Horemheb. The Amarna period was full of political intrigue, possible assassinations, and the growing threat of the Hittites to the north. It's a great bit of history and well worth the read if you have an interest in ancient Egypt. The article goes on to say, the teen bride is believed to have a very tragic life. She was married to her half-brother Tutankhamun, but after his untimely death she got married to Pharaoh Ai, who ruled from 1327 to 1323 BC, and that history suggests Ankhesenamun was also briefly married to Tutankhamun's father and grandfather. Really keeping it in the family, those ancient pharaohs. If Ankhesenamun's tomb is found, odds are it will have been looted already. Certainly if it's intact, it would be a truly spectacular find, much like Carter's in 1922. But even if it has been looted, like countless others, the inscriptions and other information within it could provide fascinating new insight into this turbulent time in Egyptian history. Okay, so next we have an article from The Guardian. Yes, I know, The Guardian is awful. Complex engineering and metalwork discovered beneath ancient Greek pyramid. Pyramid? Really? Does everything have to be a pyramid with you? More than 4,000 years ago, builders carved out the entire surface of a naturally pyramid-shaped promontory on the Greek island of Keros. They shaped it into terraces covered with 1,000 tons of specially imported gleaming white stone to give it the appearance of a giant stepped pyramid rising from the Aegean, the most imposing man-made structure in all the Cyclades archipelago. So it's terraced hill then, a fortified settlement. We have them here in New Zealand. They're not as impressive as that, but we call them not pyramids. Maintaining as well as constructing the settlement would have taken a huge communal effort. The now deserted slopes of Daskilo were once covered with structures and buildings, suggesting that 4,500 years ago it was one of the most densely populated part of the islands, despite the fact it could not have been self-sufficient, meaning that most food, like the stone and the ore for metalworking, had to be imported. This is yet further evidence for the extensive ancient trade networks around the Mediterranean, so not surprising at all. The first evidence of metalworking was found in excavations 10 years ago. The new finds have uncovered 2 workshops full of metalworking debris, and objects including a lead axe, a mould for copper daggers, and dozens of ceramic fragments from metalworking equipment, including the mouth of a bellows. The history of metallurgy is really fascinating, and this site is showing the use of some of the simplest metals to melt and cast, lead and copper. The article doesn't mention bronze anywhere in it, so maybe the site was abandoned before the Bronze Age. What we're seeing here with the metalworking in other ways is the beginning of urbanization. Hold on! Beginnings of urbanization. Urbanization predates metallurgy by thousands of years, so no, just no. Maybe he meant the beginnings of urbanization in Greece and was misquoted? This project is being directed by Michael Boyd and Lord Renfrew. These guys know what they're doing. Excavated soils reveals food traces, including pulses, grapes, olives, figs, and almonds and cereals, including wheat and barley. Evi Margaritis of the Cyprus Institute said, "Much of this food was imported. In the light of this evidence, we need to reconsider what we know about existing networks to include food exchange." That's fair enough. The archaeological record is a biased sample in many ways. Organic materials like traces of food, furs, and fabric often don't survive, so discussions of ancient trade inevitably focuses on objects that do survive, such as ceramics, lithics, and metal. This spearhead mould is beautiful. Look how neatly it's been cut out of the stone. I hope they take a cast out of it, or even better, find a copper spearhead that was made using the mould. They note that the settlement is on a promontory guarding the best harbour on the island, so it's pretty clear that this settlement was located there for strategic reasons, definitely not access to resources. This is a fascinating project, and I'll keep an eye out for future updates on it. And to ensure little old New Zealand is not left out, here's an article from the Dominion Post, the main Wellington newspaper. Wooden post, dating back to the New Zealand Land Wars, found in central Wellington. Now, I know what you're going to say. A post? After a royal tomb and a not pyramid? Come on. Please, bear with me. Unbeknownst to many Wellingtonians, just centimetres below the city's pavements lie countless pieces of historical infrastructure, dating back as far as the New Zealand Wars. During ongoing work to upgrade the Lombard Lane area in the central city, Wellington City Council contractors have discovered a wooden post, thought to be part of a defensive fort predating 1850. This defensive fort was called Te Aro Redoubt. It was an entire city block surrounded by a moat and bank, designed as a retreat for the population if the city was attacked in the 1840s. Following the Wairau Fray in 1843, the settlers were genuinely afraid that Te Raupraha, or Te Rangi Hayata, may attack the settlement. There were raids and fighting in the nearby Hutt Valley, and so fortifications were built as a result. And here's Andy, my dude, rocking the high-vis orange. The camera loves you. It's such a pity that the earthworks are narrow trenches, not an open excavation, which would provide a better picture of what's going on. The fortifications of early Wellington are entirely invisible at this point. Mount Cook Barracks is long gone, now occupied by the Dominion Museum and Massey University. Clay Point has vanished under Stuart Dawson's Corner. Various suburban blockhouses are largely forgotten, and the two redoubts that are in Thorndon no one seems to be able to locate. An archaeological project on the supposed site of one of them a few years back found nothing but Victorian cottage remains, not a trace of the huge defensive ditch of a redoubt. Now, I do not know what artefacts were found in these works. I may quiz Andy about it at a later date, but it's one of the sad truths here in New Zealand. We cannot boast about them in the media, as all that it does is draw foskers to the sites to steal them. Anyway, I think it's great that these sites are being promoted in the media. Maybe the public will realise that New Zealand does have a history after all. This next article is from the Greek News. Ancient Greek mosaic floor discovered in war-torn Syria while digging for mines. Damn, that's a lovely bit of work. Amid the bloody conflict, 3 Byzantine mosaic panels had been unearthed inside an archaeological site during a Syrian army mine clearance operation in the eastern countryside of Hama-In, according to the state-run Syrian Arab News Agency. One of the 3 panels bears a Greek inscription, while the other 2 have bird and floral motifs. In addition to the 3 mosaics, a team of archaeologists uncovered the foundations of a church nearby. During a routine mine excavation, the Syrian Engineering Corps found a unique-looking slab of material underneath the earth. After some careful digging, what they saw was an ancient Greek mosaic floor, which surprised all involved. Syrian authorities for archaeology were contacted urgently, and the process of professional excavation commenced. I think it's brilliant that they stopped to investigate this and see that it gets recorded properly. It's a reminder that prior to the war, heritage tourism was a big industry in Syria. I imagine the government would like that to be the case again. Translations have started on the structures and have revealed the connection to Saint Alexander and the most respected bishop Evangelist. The chief of the Antiquities and Museums Department in Hama, Abdul Qadir Fazat, told Sana the site is in a church floor dating back to the 5th century AD. It's really great that this is getting attention, as I know in some cases in that part of the world, Byzantine sites have been smashed through with heavy earth-moving equipment in order to investigate earlier pre-Roman archaeological deposits. Finally, I have an article from the CBC News. Lucky Find gives archaeologists... not a fan of that spelling there, bub. Gives archaeologists a glimpse into early hunting technology in Yukon. A unique barbed antler arrow point with a copper-end blade was recovered from a melting ice patch in July 2016, within the traditional territory of the Keros Tagish First Nation. It was spotted by Yukon archaeologist Greg Hare, who was showing a documentary camera crew some sites around melted ice patches where he and others had found hunting weapons over the last 20 years. Here's an example of various atlatl darts that they've found in the area. The significant part of this story is that the arrowhead is so old. It's such a beautiful expression of copper metallurgy, Hare said. Copper only first shows up in the Yukon about 1,000 years ago, and this is almost at the beginning of that technology. That technology refers to the bow and arrow, which replaced the atlatl, also known as a throwing dart or throwing spear, around 1,100 years ago as the main weapon used by indigenous hunters. It's understandable why this happened. A bow can potentially put out far more power behind a projectile than an atlatl can, and probably has a faster rate of fire as well. You can see how much work went into crafting this arrowhead. It would have been a big loss to the hunter who'd need to replace it. I rarely see articles on early North American metallurgy, and I'm glad to have found this one. I hope you found this format interesting. If so, I'm dead keen to do more like this. Thanks for watching. Cheers!